Okay, yeah, no, and I'm just going to do a quick demonstration video to go with the lesson today to show you how I made this dual coding example. So the important thing when we're looking at what life was like in earldoms and how earldoms are ruled is just to remind yourself what the different earldoms are. I did show you this in the video I put on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. So England was split up into these huge earldoms, much bigger than the counties that we live in today. You can see them here like Wessex, Mercia, East Anglia, Northumbria and Kent. And what we're going to look at is how these earldoms were broken down into smaller sections to make it easier for the earls and the king who were ruling them. Okay. The other point behind this activity is learning how to use a textbook, because at GCSE you do get lots and lots of information in books like this, and it can seem quite long-winded to have to like kind of read it all, and it can be a bit overwhelming. But this activity I think you'll like, and it breaks it down. It doesn't involve much writing either, which I think is pretty good. So what I did, because the book, it talks about local government and how earldoms were divided up. What I've done is I've just drawn an earldom. So just a big like circle on the page, and I've labelled it as earldom. And the book's at the beginning, it says that earldoms are divided into shires. So a shire is kind of like a big area, like a big county. Well, I'm just going to divide mine in half because I'm not going to do it into loads of shires because it will take up too much space and there won't be enough space for me to write. And then what the book says is a shire was in basically it had lots of different functions: social, political, economic and military. Well, the social one, it talks about courts, so I'm going to label here a little hammer, kind of like a judge would have, because they're in charge of courts. It also says something about them having a shire reeve. A shire reeve is like a sheriff. So rather than copying that whole bullet point out, I'm just going to draw a little angry man here, because sheriffs would have been pretty angry. It says on the next page, they were in charge of collecting taxes and carrying out law and order. So I imagine them to be angry going around to people's houses collecting their money, because no one likes to have money taken off them. I'm also thinking of the sheriff in Robin Hood as well. He was pretty angry, the sheriff of Nottingham. So we've got shire reeves, or a sheriff. It also talks about the economy. Each one had a burh or a fortified town, and there's actually a picture of it here, so I'm just going to draw my little burh. So it's a little fortified town or village with some little houses in it. And I'm just going to draw some pound signs. I'm not going to write the fact it has money. I'll just label it burh. And then it also says about the military. Each shire has a fjord. Weird word to say. It's definitely a weird one to spell. And a fjord is just an army made up of peasants. So I'm just going to draw some little peasants. And on the other page, it says there was something called a select and a general fjord. It said the select fjord will fight anywhere, and the general fjord only fight locally. So I'm just going to write locally and anywhere. Okay. Now, I don't need to write all of that information out because it's in the book. So if I ever forget it, I can just go back and read the book. But by doing this and thinking of pictures to draw and just writing some little icons and labels like this actually helps you remember it. Okay. The next bit then, it talks about how a shire is divided up into lots of things called hundreds. Well, I'm only going to draw one because it will take too long. So I'm going to draw 100 in my shire. And it says within 100, there were lots of tithings, and a tithing is 10 households. So I'm just going to draw 10 little houses like this. Really quickly. They don't need to be detailed. I'm just going to label it tithing. Okay. It actually says here that that was for administrative reasons. The reason they did that is because if they needed to get taxes, they know if they went to a tithing, they should have 10 lots of money. Or if they needed to raise a fjord or an army, they'd go to a tithing and they might take 2 people from each tithing. It just made it really easy to count. So it's quite an efficient method, actually. It also says that the shires are made up of, in the hundreds, they are made up of 100 hides of land. And a hide, I had to Google this, a hide is, I'm just going to write times 100 on there, is about 120 acres, which is 90 football pitches. So they're huge. Huge pieces of land. I did say on the voice recording, if you've ever walked around Bushy Park, Google how many acres that is, and you'll see how big these hundreds are. Because they've got 100 hides of land in them, and each hide is 120 acres. Okay, And what I've done there is I've covered all of that information in the book, and I've just literally recorded it in this way. Okay, to check that I know it and I've learnt it, all I need to do is fold my piece of paper in half. Okay, close my book, and then on the other side of your bit of paper, can you do it from memory? And if you can, then you know you've learnt it. If there's any bits that you can't do, just check on the other side to see what you've forgotten, and then add it to your blank side. Okay, good luck.